I take it we're all here for the tour.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to Plant Delights Nursery. My name is Kevin Stevens. I'm the lead grower here, so I deal with a lot of the plant health and the IPM pest management in the gardens and nurseries here. Today we're going to be talking about carnivorous plants. So I'm going to take us over here. I have a few things set up and some ideas to look at.
Charlie.
You can go wherever you'd like over here. You could just kind of try to fill in where you can. But a lot of what we have over in this garden space are bog plants and carnivorous plants. They live together, they're very similar. Does anybody know what makes a carnivorous plant or carnivorous plant?
They eat like meat.
They do eat meat. They do eat meat. That's a good way of putting it. They will eat little insects and small bugs. Every pitcher plant is a little bit different on what they're tailored to go after. And you guys know what these are.
Venus flytraps.
Venus flytraps. And they eat?
Any bug?
You're correct, any bug. They will eat any bug that can fit inside of there. Some bugs.
Including flies?
Including flies. That's correct. That's correct.
Butterfly? Will it eat a butterfly?
It does. So,
Nice.
how does a Venus flytrap work?
I don't know.
Does anybody know?
Trigger hairs.
Exactly. Each of these little pads right here have very, very tiny hairs on them. And as you can see, just by taking it and touching the hairs, just like that, it closes that easy.
Here, use your finger.
Can you try your finger? No, I'm just kidding. You don't want to do that. Basically, every trap is going to open and shut only 3 times before it dies off, and then the next trap will open. So we really don't want to trigger them too much, but to get an idea of how that trigger mechanism works, as well as watching it for the first time, is pretty cool, isn't it?
Would it eat a rock?
It would not eat a rock. It would actually take the rock and put the rock inside, and then slowly spit it out, and that would be one of the times that it would open.
How does it digest the food if it doesn't have a stomach?
That's a really good question. On the inside
Does it use acids?
of those pads, yes.
Does it drink Mountain Dew?
They cannot drink Mountain Dew. On the inside of the pads is going to be a digestive acid that's going to help digest all of the insects that it's eaten. The same thing in our pitcher plants. There's a digestive enzyme and acid inside the pitcher plants.
What's
So
a pitcher plant?
the pitcher plant is one of these. And this is a special kind of trap. And these are all different pitcher plants. And each pitcher plant, the white ones attract a lot more flies. It's like flying up at a window. They get trapped in there because they keep trying to come up and out and go back down and up and out, and they can't figure it out. So these ones are specially instituted for different bugs. If you see the red veins right here, that's what they're going after. They're kind of going after the flower on the vein with this. So the same thing that goes with these is if
You're cutting it?
I think so. Should we? Should we give it a whirl? Do you want to see what's inside or not?
Sure.
I thought so.
But I don't want to
Thank you,
know if it's
plant.
ugly inside.
You don't want to know if it's ugly inside? Well, it's not really going to be ugly inside.
I can't get.
So all of the pitchers are going to have this long tube that goes down into the more digestive enzymes of everything. And as you can see, it is still alive, but it was stuck. So I chose this one on purpose because I saw it fall in there on purpose. So I knew there'd be something cool in there to show you guys. So on the inside, it has a bunch of tiny little hairs and enzymes, and it gets very slick, and they get stuck down here, and they can't turn around. They go down one way, and then they get stuck, and they come back out. So the same way that they're digesting in here, inside this tube, is the same way they're digesting inside that pad.
Oh, he's back.
So where do these grow? Anybody?
They're like the
Where?
water.
Where?
They're like the water.
Kind of. And this is probably the biggest question that we get here. They grow in a specific media mix. And what we're going to be looking for is a very sandy mix. So it's about 1 part peat moss to 1 part sand. Or I have people use 1 part peat moss to 1 part perlite. Perlite sometimes has a tendency to rise to the top of the pot. Plus, I like the look of the sand a little bit better. But as you can see, it's a very acidic mix for it. It's going to be a very 3, maybe 4 on the pH scale, so a very acidic soil is what they want to live in. And they don't want any nutrition, meaning from runoff, so we don't put them by air conditioners just because you got a water puddle, or I get it all the time, hey, there's a low level of my yard that collects water, how about putting pitcher plants are going to die there really quick. They get too much excess of minerals. Everything that they need to take up is going to be based on what they're actually eating, other than light and water to sustain themselves. So everybody, if you want to pass this around, this is kind of what we do with all of our mixes. This bog is very similar. It's exactly what that is. As you can see, it's got a nice sandy layer here. So it's really sandy, and you can see that soil the same way. If we planted other plants in here, they would die right away. So these are specific to this environment. A lot of times we get asked the question, well, if I can't make this at my house, how can I take these home and grow them? You do it in a container bog garden, and they're very, very easy to make. The biggest challenge is you're going to have to go ahead and soak the peat a day before, so it hydrates everything. But after that, about halfway up, as you can see in this very front section, I have a hole drilled, and that's where all my water is going to escape from. So the entire bottom basin is going to fill up with water up to that level. So leaving it outside in the rain and everything else, it's never going to get overdone or anything else. The top level is going to always stay nice and moist, but the crown and everything does not want to be all the way sunken down in the water. It wants to have that sponge layer in between. So what you end up doing is filling up most of the container, and then you're going to, on your top layer, we're going to use a little bit of sphagnum moss, and that's going to help keep everything dry. Sphagnum moss is basically peat moss once it breaks down a little bit, or once peat moss breaks down. So container gardens are very easy to go ahead and work on. All of these plants work really well in that environment. We only want to use distilled water. That's the other big catch with all pitcher plants. If we're doing anything past distilling the water, you're going to start getting either hard minerals, salts, or other excess into that water, especially chlorine.
Rain barrel water?
Rain barrel water is fantastic. That's what they're after. So a lot of times what we'll try to do is place them in an area where it's going to get heavy rain. They want about as much sun as you can give them. So we're looking probably close to 8 hours of sun, 9 hours of sun a day. The more sun, the better. The flowers are only going to come up now at this time of year, and of course all different shapes and sizes. And they'll go down probably in the beginning of summer when it starts to get just a little bit hotter. They make really cool cut flowers. That's the other thing. A lot of the pitchers as well as the flowers keep really well in water. So, and this is our sphagnum moss. This is what's going to go on top, and this is really what creates a lot of that ground effect, where we have it's almost squishy, but that's where the way the bog is going to be. So everything underneath what we're doing here is actually filled with water. There's our watering tube right there to make sure everything's in order. And there's actually a layer of water right underneath this garden as we speak. And that's where everything is self-generating and coming back each year. Everything that we had planted last year here is now multiplying much better. We did lose a few of our fly traps, unfortunately. They really need a cold chill, and I just don't think in this environment we got them cold enough so that they wanted to reproduce. That is the other thing about containers and fly traps. If you take Venus fly traps in the house, they will work, but you better plan a space in your refrigerator for 3 months for it to go live in the wintertime. And if you're not willing for that commitment, I wouldn't go ahead and try to put them in the house. But every plant here, especially carnivorous plants, needs a heavy winter chill to set in that next year eye and perennialization. So, is there any questions?
Like, was this excavated to a certain depth and then filled in with your mix, or?
Exactly, exactly. This was dug down approximately 3 feet, okay? And then there's a layer of liner underneath it, and then we put heavy stone on top of that. So we made an area underneath with the reservoir. Then on top of that, we put a geotextile fabric, and then that way the water is able to come up, but that level's never able to sink down. Exactly. So this one here is all sand, half sand, half peat mix. And once again, it would be a little bit more advantageous if we had a little bit more of a buffer. We do have some runoff here. So we do actually have that challenge. But in a perfect world, it should be fine for a lot of these bog plants.
Are they native to this area?
That was the question I was waiting for. These guys are only found in North and South Carolina and a little piece of Georgia. So every Venus flytrap in the world comes right from Wilmington area. Is a giant area full of them. So most of these are endangered. The white flowers is what gives them away, unfortunately. So anybody who goes out actually poaching the plant starts looking for that white flower coming up, and that's how they're actually, taking them. We do most of our Dionaeas, which is a flytrap, in tissue culture at this point because it's very sustainable. It doesn't affect the plant population. We can leave those plants in the wild. So a lot of all these tissue fly traps are all tissue culture. The one that you see is in Walmart and everywhere else is the same thing. It's all going to be coming out of tissue culture right now. So this is your own little native plant from our area. If you want, I'll go ahead and pass that one around so everybody can get a closer look at that. You can see where the hairs in the trigger system is.
I have another question.
Yeah.
As far as companion plants, the little orange guy,
Yeah.
I've seen that with other bog gardens.
Yes.
Is that something that's ever in production, or?
That's something we don't have in production as of right now. It's
You know what the botanic
possible.
genus? What the genus is on that orange one?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the genus on that one. But the only thing I can remember is the flower actually gets very cylindrical. And it actually looks like somebody came and just placed a marshmallow on top of it. But I cannot remember the genus, and I'm not going to try to stumble through it if I don't know 100%.
Take that gun. A little bit.
A little bit different.
That was over at the botanical garden. Mm-hmm. They have that box. We're looking to do some lower ground cover instead of all the tall Saraceniums, and that's something we don't do.
Those ones work really well, and we have a lot of other options.
That's cool.
We want that.
This one is definitely really cool. It's like little buttons all over the place. Not so much carnivorous, but it plays with all of our carnivorous plants. It's more of a bog plant, meaning it really wants to be an acidic soil as well with everything.
Okay, so that.
So this is something that we talked about putting in production. We don't sell this one as of right now.
I have to keep coming back.
No, that's why. But the more recommendations we get for things, and the more we have people wanting to share those things and opportunities, we can start adding those to our catalog.
You said they close 3 times only. Like, how does that mechanism work? It just like the trigger hairs break off and it can't close. What's the?
No, it's really the amount of energy that it's expressing and needing to take. So it has so many times it can close, and it takes a lot of energy for it to open back up, and then once again, here we go again. So it's kind of like a flower living its life through the energy cycle of the plant, and then it's more efficient for that plant to put off brand new growth to do it again than it is to try to rehab that.
And how often do they need to eat?
Well, that's the more they eat, the bigger they're going to become in a cluster, the more they're going to be able to offset. So that's just with anything. The more food that you and me take up, it'll be in the same situation. They would probably, in a normal, I guess, week, probably only need 1 or 2 flies in a time to sustain themselves from that. I would not recommend putting ground beef in them. I've gotten that before. Can I just put some hamburger? No, I probably would not go that route either.
Let nature take its course.
Exactly. And they don't need a extremely a lot amount of bugs around them, because the number one thing that's going to attract them is ants. Ants are going to start coming first and foremost, and once the ants start getting in there and the smell just starts coming out for the beetles and the flies and everything else to want to go get there and get the decomposition. So ants always start the first leg of the journey, and because we have ants just about everywhere, you're pretty much safe that they're going to start eating. Same thing with a lot of the fly traps and stuff. They're going to be triggered on other insects as well.
And you have these for sale somewhere here over there?
I have pitcher plants here for sale, like these right here. These are both for sale. I will have Venus flytraps. We are currently out of them. I will have those the beginning of June, the first week of June, those will be ready. So for our summer open house, we'll have all of those ready as well. But we do have pitcher plants over in our nursery available. And there's many different kinds. There's many different flowers. If anything else, because I have so many flowering over there, it'd be cool to just even go look and see. We got some really unique flower structures coming out over there. And other questions? All right.